We've all heard about the concept of awakening consciousness, this profound shift where life begins to look different. For some, it feels like the illusions of the world start to crumble, revealing a clearer picture of reality. You might even feel like you're in this phase right now, gaining a deeper understanding of how life works. But what's rarely talked about is the challenging, even painful side of this process. Awakening isn't just a smooth ascent into light and bliss. In truth, it's often a journey through the darker, hidden parts of ourselves, the shadows we'd spent years avoiding. Choosing to awaken doesn't mean stepping into eternal happiness. It means opening doors to truths about ourselves that we've buried. It's like unlocking a portal where light and hope await, but so do the shadows, insecurities, and unresolved pain we've long ignored. For every moment of insight, there's a hidden part of ourselves revealed. For every breakthrough, there's an uncomfortable truth waiting to be faced. In this video, we'll explore the often overlooked, darker side of awakening and why it's so essential to confront it. This isn't about running away from what's difficult. It's about embracing the full depth of the human experience. Many people romanticize the idea of spiritual awakening, imagining it as a magical solution to life's struggles. It's often portrayed as a state of perfect peace, a place where all pain vanishes and life becomes effortlessly joyful. For some, awakening seems like an escape from the chaos, a safe haven where worldly problems no longer exist. But this is one of the first traps of awakening, a belief that enlightenment is about avoiding discomfort or hardship. This idea is seductive. It paints awakening as a quick fix, an enticing product that promises instant relief. But the reality is much more nuanced and, at times, far more difficult to accept. Awakening isn't about escaping pain. It's about learning to see pain in a new light. It doesn't mean eliminating challenges. It means gaining the ability to face them fully without turning away. True spirituality doesn't come with shortcuts. It demands courage and honesty. It requires us to confront the parts of ourselves that we've ignored or denied for years. And let's be clear, that process can hurt. One of the first obstacles we face in awakening is the ego, that carefully constructed sense of identity we've built over a lifetime. The ego is not inherently bad, but it resists change. It doesn't want to be challenged, and it certainly doesn't want to be dismantled. When people begin their spiritual journey expecting it to inflate their sense of importance, they often meet frustration and disappointment. Awakening doesn't nourish the ego, it reveals its fragility. The ego clings to ideas like, "I am special," or "I'm more evolved than others." It turns spirituality into a status symbol, a way to feel superior. But true awakening strips all of that away. It's not about feeling elevated above others. It's about surrendering to something greater. Awakening humbles us, showing that we're not separate, extraordinary beings, but small waves in the vast ocean of existence. This realization can be disheartening, even painful. The mind, which has spent years clinging to fixed beliefs and external solutions, begins to lose its footing. This process of disillusionment can feel like the ground beneath us is being pulled away. But it's not destruction, it's cleansing. It's a shedding of all the false narratives we've built about ourselves and the world. As consciousness expands, it doesn't just illuminate the beautiful parts of us. It also shines a light on the shadows, the parts we've hidden, ignored, or repressed. Most of us carry a collection of traits, emotions, and memories that we've buried because they don't fit the image we want to project. These hidden parts don't disappear just because we refuse to look at them. Instead, they linger in our subconscious, quietly influencing our actions, relationships, and perceptions of the world. Facing these shadows isn't easy. It means confronting aspects of ourselves that may feel uncomfortable or even disturbing. But within these shadows lies incredible power. The parts of us we've suppressed are often the very things that hold the energy and strength we need to grow. The shadow isn't just a burden. It's also a treasure chest waiting to be unlocked. True awakening is about accepting all of it, the light and the dark. It's about recognizing that the human experience is messy, complex, and full of contradictions. By embracing our shadows, we don't just heal ourselves, we gain access to the full spectrum of who we are. And in that process, we find a deeper connection to life, to others, and to the vast universe we're all a part of. Without even realizing it, you use up a lot of your energy, your life force, your chi, just trying to keep your secrets hidden. Over time, this can seriously wear you down. Many people think shadow work is just an optional part of the spiritual journey, but in reality, facing our darker sides is an essential part of the path. When we dig into the shadow, we discover parts of ourselves that clash with the image we try to present to the world. We find envy, jealousy, resentment, arrogance, insecurity, all those uncomfortable feelings we'd rather ignore. It's hard to accept that, no matter how much we've tried to be good or spiritual, we still carry these emotions and urges within us. And that's when we come face to face with the version of ourselves we thought we had left behind. That side we wanted to pretend didn't exist is still there, just waiting for us to acknowledge it. Our shadow side often shows up most clearly in our relationships. Every person we meet, especially those who trigger strong emotions in us, whether it's anger, fear, or even intense attraction, acts as a mirror, reflecting our own shadow back at us. What annoys us in others, or what we admire in them, often points to something within ourselves that we've ignored or denied. This is what Carl Jung called projection. We take the things we've repressed and project them onto others. When we realize that what bothers us in others is often something we dislike about ourselves, our relationships become powerful tools for self-discovery. We can stop blaming others for everything and instead look inward to see what's really going on. But integrating our shadow doesn't mean letting our negative traits run wild. It's not about embracing harmful behaviors without question. Instead, it's about accepting that these traits and emotions are part of who we are. When we resist our shadow, it only gains more power over us, controlling us in ways we might not even notice. By recognizing and accepting it, we take away its ability to control us. Jung also talked about individuation, the process of becoming whole by bringing all parts of ourselves into the light. It's about true transformation, and facing the shadow is a big part of that. Once we confront our hidden sides, they lose their power over us. Emotions like anger and fear, when we understand them, become tools for growth. Take anger, for example. It can teach us about our boundaries, where we draw the line and what we're not willing to accept. Fear, on the other hand, can show us what it means to be truly brave. This process makes us more understanding of others too. We start to see their shadows without judgment, knowing that everyone carries some hidden parts they're working through. One of the biggest challenges on the spiritual journey is dealing with the ego. The ego is like a mask we wear to protect ourselves, to make us feel important and separate from others. At the same time, it's the source of many internal conflicts. Our minds like to build a solid, unchanging image of who we are, and the ego holds on to this with all its strength. This resistance to change is natural, but to move forward, we need to understand how the ego works and why it's so afraid of losing control. The ego is at the center of our identity. It's made up of our beliefs, desires, and the image we've built over time. It's what makes us feel different from everyone else. And that sense of separation is what becomes an obstacle on the spiritual path. The ego tries to convince us that we are defined by our thoughts, achievements, and personal stories. It strengthens through our experiences, seeking constant validation. So when we start to question who we are, when we try to move beyond the labels and stories, the ego panics. It fears that awakening means it will cease to exist. For the ego, losing control feels like dying, and that fear creates huge resistance within us. When we feel the urge to expand our consciousness, the ego fights back. It fills our minds with doubt, fear, and anger. It's like it's trying to hold on to control, refusing to be part of something greater than itself. Many spiritual teachings describe this inner struggle. When Jesus said we must lose our life to gain it, he meant that we need to let go of the illusions created by the ego in order to experience true life. Losing the ego isn't about losing ourselves. It's about opening up to a whole new way of living. Some people think that merging with the divine or a higher consciousness means losing who they are, but it's actually the opposite. It's about expanding your awareness to encompass so much more. Think of it like this. When two waves match up perfectly, they combine to create a much stronger wave. In the same way, when we align ourselves with a higher consciousness, our individual selves don't disappear. They expand into something greater. But the ego, always wanting control, tries to take over the spiritual journey too. The ego wants to use spirituality as another way to feel important. But true awakening is about letting go of the need to be special or superior. It's about realizing that we are part of something vast and interconnected, something far beyond our individual selves. It's about finding freedom, not by running from our shadows or holding on to our ego, but by embracing every part of ourselves and allowing our consciousness to grow. In the end, facing our shadow and understanding our ego is a challenging but deeply rewarding journey. It's not about becoming perfect or eliminating the parts of us we don't like. It's about understanding, accepting, and integrating all aspects of who we are. Only by doing this can we experience real transformation and live a more authentic, fulfilled life. The ego often disguises itself in the robes of enlightenment, creating the illusion that it has already reached some higher state of being. Chogyam Trungpa, in his book The Mask of Enlightenment, explains that this false spirituality is really the ego's way of protecting itself. It turns spirituality into a title or achievement rather than a true journey of letting go. This phenomenon is seen when people adopt a holy image, becoming attached to ideas of superiority. They believe they are more evolved than others, which becomes a way to avoid real inner work. Instead of genuinely seeking growth, they perform a role. They act the part of an enlightened person without doing the real work. This trap is a powerful diversion. It can stop someone's growth and keep them stuck in illusions. The only way to overcome the ego is through constant self-awareness and humility. We must closely watch our thoughts and motivations, always asking ourselves why we do what we do. This practice of self-awareness keeps the ego from taking over. St. Augustine, in his Confessions, said that true self-knowledge brings humility. The more we understand our weaknesses, the less we need to make ourselves seem important. Many spiritual traditions recommend a practice of simply observing our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them. When we do this, we start to see that the ego is not who we really are. This separation is a crucial step. It weakens the ego's grip and brings us closer to a more genuine experience of life. Being quietly aware, present in each moment, allows us to experience life more fully, free from the limitations that the ego tries to impose. The spiritual journey is not a straight path filled with light and peace. Often it feels like crossing a dark and shadowy abyss, a process sometimes called the dark night of the soul. This concept comes from St. John of the Cross. It describes a time of deep spiritual and emotional crisis when everything seems lost, and the meaning of life feels hidden. It's a difficult experience, but also an important one for spiritual growth. During this time, we may feel empty or disconnected from our sense of purpose. What once seemed like a clear, bright path now seems to disappear, leading us into deep questioning about our lives and beliefs. Thomas More, in his book Care of the Soul, explains that this phase invites us to let go of the illusions we've built about ourselves and life, preparing us for a new understanding of what is sacred. The dark night of the soul often brings feelings of loneliness and disconnection. As Paulo Coelho writes in The Alchemist, this darkness is sometimes a necessary passage for us to discover our inner light. The pain and confusion that come with the dark night push us to face truths we've ignored and let go of beliefs that limit us. It's similar to the transformation of a caterpillar into a butterfly. Just as the caterpillar must endure a period of darkness and isolation in its cocoon, we too go through a transformation when we face our inner darkness. By accepting this difficult process, the dark night of the soul can lead to a kind of spiritual rebirth, a new vision of who we are and what life is all about. One of the keys to moving through the dark night is acceptance. Carl Jung once said, "What you resist persists. What you accept transforms." When we resist pain and confusion, we only make them last longer. But when we accept where we are and allow ourselves to feel our emotions, we create the space for transformation to happen. Accepting the dark night as a natural part of our journey allows us to let go of the need for control. And when we release that need, we often find a lighter, clearer path through the darkness. The lessons learned during these hard times prepare us for a more authentic life, one that is in harmony with who we really are. Coming out of the dark night doesn't mean the pain is gone. Instead, it means we've learned how to carry our experiences in a new way, with a lighter heart and a renewed sense of purpose and meaning. It's easy, though, as we move toward a higher state of consciousness, to fall into the trap of feeling spiritually superior. As we grow in our spiritual practices and understanding, the ego can turn these gains into a sense of hidden pride. This pride can quietly slip in, making us believe we are somehow above others. It's crucial to recognize this trap and remember that real spirituality isn't about feeling superior. It's about growing in compassion, humility, and connection with everything around us. True growth is not about being above others. It's about realizing that we are all part of the same journey, each of us facing our own challenges, each of us learning to shine our light in the best way we can. Enlightenment is often seen as the ultimate goal in spirituality, but this pursuit can easily become a competition. Osho, in The Revolution of Consciousness, emphasizes that when enlightenment turns into a matter of status, we stray from its true purpose. The ego starts to crave validation through spiritual achievements, convincing us that we are somehow on a higher level of development compared to others. Brené Brown, in The Gifts of Imperfection, describes pride as a way to protect our vulnerabilities. When we feel insecure about our worth, we may cling to a false sense of superiority to hide these uncertainties. This defense can show up in many ways, like belittling others or being overly critical of those who don't follow the same spiritual path as we do. This kind of behavior not only pushes people away, but also stops us from appreciating the richness of different human experiences. By creating a barrier between ourselves and others, we lose the opportunity to learn from the diversity of paths and perspectives. Spirituality should be about inclusion, valuing everyone's experiences rather than turning it into a competition to see who knows or understands more. As we go deeper into our spiritual journey, there's a risk of isolating ourselves in a kind of spiritual bubble. Jack Kornfield, in The Path of Love, points out that too much introspection can make us lose touch with the world and with genuine human connections. We can become so focused on our own growth that we forget to stay empathetic and connected to others. This disconnection can foster a sense of superiority, where we begin to divide the world into those who are awakened and those who are not. Such thinking creates a harmful duality, feeding hidden pride and promoting a false sense of separation. True spirituality is rooted in humility, and humility isn't about putting ourselves down. It's about shifting our focus outward instead of just looking inward. Humility helps us see that the spiritual journey is a shared experience. We are all learning and growing, each with our own struggles and challenges. True spirituality comes alive in acts of service and compassion. The ego can easily distort the spiritual journey, making us believe that our knowledge or practice elevates us above others. But true enlightenment isn't about being on a pedestal. It's about the willingness to serve and uplift others. When we view spirituality as a way to help and support others, we step away from the mindset of superiority. Service becomes a natural expression of our awakening, giving us a chance to connect with humanity and build a network of compassion. Awakening to consciousness isn't about arriving at some final state of light. It's about opening up to all the nuances of the human experience. Anyone who chooses this path must be ready to face their shadows, their pain, and the illusions they've built about themselves. Awakening is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing journey, with each step revealing new layers that need to be understood and integrated. The darker aspects of awakening are a vital part of the process. It's in those dark places that we find our true strength and our capacity to love, not just the light, but the shadows as well.